Good afternoon. Happy people. Well, at least we will be by Saturday. The polling is done, it's over, the polls have closed, and we look forward to the result on Saturday, which I know is going to be a brilliant result for us all. I think they're kind of starting to now hold their hands up to realise. Owen Smith still believes that he's going to win, but at the same time, Jeremy has been telling everybody that he's going to wipe the slate clean. Amazing person. I mean, this is the kind of man we love, isn't it? He'll wipe the slate clean and it's a new start. But the thing is, people can't do this thing over and over again. These people have got to toe the line. They can't keep wiping the slate clean and them keep, going against him in such a poor way. Owen Smith has said that he is not going to actually serve behind under Jeremy Corbyn. What a very sore loser. What a horrible man, really. The type we really be so glad to see the back of. And as Theresa May embarks on enlarging her portfolio, emulating Blair and Margaret Thatcher in a belief that such ill-conceived actions would strengthen her weak position, like Blair, who falsified evidence of weapons of mass destruction to justify war in Iraq, she distinguishes her justification merely on tenuous support of coalition of US unjust and illegal wars. She should reflect on Britain's failed policies in its former colonial territories like India and Pakistan, where Pakistan was divided thousands of miles apart, with Kashmir in limbo in pursuit of its divide and rule policies. May cannot be trusted. She was backing Brexit, but now wants to remain in Europe by not taking any positive steps to implement Britain's vote, a stalling ploy that will eventually bring about unrest and dissatisfaction. Most of these politicians have an enviable ability to use language creatively to serve their political goals, as we've seen with Owen Smith. The good guys appear the bad, and the bad appear as saints who put things right. Those who we know did wrong, like Blair, whose wrongdoings will over time be whitewashed over as if nothing ever happened, magically through Chinese whispers, anti-Zionist critics and movements become labelled anti-Semitic. Disproportionate attacks on civilians and infrastructure in besieged cities become defences against terrorism, and the systematic occupation and repression of Palestinians becomes democracy. This happens the world over every time there's a war. It's the same story. And when we see same stories repeating themselves over and over again, we can bet that there is something going on behind the scenes, that people are implementing these same systems. The latest and perhaps most galling of these distortions comes straight from the mouth of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who is insisting that opposing illegal Israeli settlements is tantamount to supporting ethnic cleansing. I've been involved in debate on different types of websites, including on my own Facebook, and I find the same story over and over again. Tens of thousands of people still believing their media about these falsehoods. I look at the pro-Tory newspaper, the Daily Mail, and see people commenting on anti-Corbyn posts about how he will never win an election and how the voters who vote for him are Tory interests trying to bring the Labour Party down. Now, they just don't understand how little they know of the passion for politics this man has instilled in me particularly, and I know thousands like me. And this is not some conspiracy, it is for real, and they need to get hold of that idea. On one Twitter account, somebody actually said that I was some fake account, surely, because I was so pro Corbyn, and and how I'd never voted before, and I'm voting now for this man because it's got me excited. And when I actually proved that I was a real person, obviously my Facebook, I've got all my family and cousins on there, I'm a real person, saying this thing, they said, oh my God, really? I couldn't believe that we are real people. So yeah, what we believe about what we're taught and told in the media has got way out of hand now. It is way out of proportion, to massive proportion, to the point that we could be actually looking at World War III if we don't stop and, take a really good look at what's being written there. The hatred against Vladimir Putin and all its reasons offered by the media and so-called leaders are lies beyond the unacceptable. This is how Nazi Germany became brainwashed. So please, please, I'm begging you, don't buy into it. We get it that the Jews and many others were starved, tortured, murdered by Nazi Germany. And we get it that Hitler was a wicked dictator. But we get it that this world was affected by this, and we get it that the Jewish people were targeted by the most wicked kind of evil. We understand that. But this is history, isn't it? Not many alive today were really, directly affected by that now. Most Israelis are not Jews, and many Jews renounce their Israeli passports. Yet religion is again all the time used to continue an argument which allows the continuance of the same kind of arbitrary wickedness that Jews experienced, as this is now projected upon and carried out among neighbouring nations. The fact that those neighbouring nations are of a different religion is neither here nor there. The fact is, Israelis are in the majority atheists. The founder of Zionism, that called for a national home for the Jews, Theodor Herzl, was also an atheist. So they don't believe in a God, they just believe that he promised this land to them. We know that Hitler wanted this land to be where the UK and the USA agreed to place it, in Palestine. We understand that Palestine is a predominantly Muslim area. To agree with those politics is not anti-Semitic. To agree that those politics is wrong and to disagree with those politics is common sense. Edward Snowden's leaks revealed that Israel has directly aided Sunni jihadists in Syria by bombing Syrian military assets during jihadist attacks. The Israeli Prime Minister has reacted to the ISIS spearheaded Sunni Shia civil war in Iraq by borderline glee. The President of Israel has also suggested that a Sunni Shia war is beneficial to the future of Israel. The US and Britain provided Sunni jihadists with Toyota trucks in Syria. When an army of ISIS fighters rolled over the Syria-Iraq border, it looked like a commercial for Toyota. So you see, none of this is about religion. It's actually about politics. It is happening in order to protect Israel and to destabilize the Middle East, whilst blaming religion, making out we, or rather our governments, are the good guys helping out. This same thing has been done historically over and over again, and our children in our schools have to go by law to school to learn all of these lies printed in their history books as facts, so that they will become soldiers or flag wavers who are willing to sign up or proudly encourage their children to sign up to protect their country and all its false freedoms, should it ever come to it. This misleading of our children also keeps the population down. They will remove children from parents who will teach their children something different to this, using any small misdemeanor in their parenting style they can find. For example, this child came to school in the wrong shoes, or this child had dirty fingernails. This evil involves my own country, the UK and the USA, and I for one am disgusted at my own country's involvement in all of this wickedness. Where, as I say, I do understand and empathise how the Jews were persecuted by the Nazis in the past. Today, I say I do understand. I do get it. The Palestinians today, though, are trying to protect their homes and their land. That's happening now. If someone came along and started knocking your house down and started building their home in your garden, you would fight it. That's what's happening. The Palestinian elected leaders and governments are firing rockets to hold back the borders and to stop them from continuing to build on the West Bank, their homeland. Question: why are so many of you calling this out about religion? Meanwhile, Israel used weapons sold to them by the US, as said before, to murder thousands of Muslim Palestinians. This way, the newspaper can report it as a religious issue and a religious war. If you are drawn into that belief, please question it. Let's talk about religion and politics. Those who practice Judaism shows that anyone can become a Jew. The idea of Israel being based on a secular religious base makes no sense. Furthermore, all Palestinians are Semites, and most Jews are not. You are from where you were born, period. If you are not practicing religion, how can you claim anything based on the religion you do not follow? Now, I'm happy to have Jews, Muslims, Christians living amongst us, and I refute anyone who calls me out on being anti-Semitic for speaking what I see as truth. The big problem is not semantics, not Semitics. Semitics and semantics are intrinsically related. The latter refers to either the use of or the study of words, whilst the former literally means word or name, originally, at least as far as the Armagnac goes. So if Semitic were used as a verb, then it might mean to name a thing or a person. And to be semantic would be to discuss its meaning or origin. Semitic, as in referring to the overused term anti-Semitic adjective relating to or denoting family of languages that includes Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic, and certain ancient languages such as Phoenician, and sorry, I don't know that word very well, and Akkadian, constituting the main subgroup of the Afro-Asiatic family, relating to the people who speak the Semitic languages, especially Hebrew and Arabic. So I'm not anti-Semitic in saying this. I befriend Jews as much as I befriend Muslims and Christians. Now I know that Ken Livingstone was pulled up for saying the Zionists worked with Hitler to move Zionists to Palestine, but this is a truth. Nobody should be called out on being anti-Semitic if what they are saying is truth, no matter how distasteful that truth. The non-Zionists and those that are too poor to pay off people like George Soros and others, now wealthy Zionists, are exterminated or were exterminated, which only furthered the Zionist agenda and fundraising worldwide. It always has been and always will be Palestine. No government can take land from people and give it to another. If the US government want to do this, why didn't they give these Jews a bit of the States instead of selling them guns to bomb the Middle East? The only claim Jews have is based on their Bible. They have no claim. The true Jews know this and choose to live amongst us in the world. Palestine always has had a rightful claim to that land, and segregating people by religion is like separating people by colour. You wouldn't do it. We know that that would be wrong. That is wrong. It's a racial segregation, apartheid. Israelis who claim Palestine was never in Palestine are Khazars, basically Russians, which adopted Judaism as religion, even though most of them do not practice it, and they're not descendants of the Jews from the land of Israel. The Khazars were Hunnish, Turkish people converted to Judaism in 840 AD, not a Hebrew amongst them. The Jewish originally were scattered by the Romans via the slave trade. The Romans conquered the area, and those who weren't killed were mostly sold off to other countries as slaves. That's one of the major factors of how the Jewish community was so spread out in the Middle East and in the Eastern European areas, rather, like Russia, Germany, and Austria. In many ways, in the rules that make Palestine Israel, my own birth country, the UK, should actually be called Rome, as it was created and founded by Romans. They built our roads. What if we rename all countries by the name of the people who conquered it and created it? In the UK's case, the Romans. Let's call the UK Rome. How would that suit? I'm sure quite a few people would fight against that, don't you think? So let's talk about how we are controlled into beliefs and by belief. And I'm not talking about religious belief. The fact is, the more honest you are, the more people will rebel against you. And as they try to hold you into their version of truth, or in your case, their lies, we know that most of the lies told come from the media, as I've said, and I've said this enough times, and those are probably lies. But they don't care so long as you believe in them enough to vote the liars to power. The fact is, the kinder you are, the more they will try to take advantage of you, thinking you're a soft touch, and try to get you into this belief of their version of events so that you will give your power away to them so that they can rule over you and put in laws to make you pay for their services. But once you have given your power away to them, you have to you can't have no say in this. And if you don't conform and pay up, then you will go to jail. And those you voted for will send you there. Do you see what you are doing to yourselves when you don't get involved and blindly follow the media and follow these people's version of events? The more you won't give up and give in to their demands, the more they will force them upon you, so that you have to take responsibility for where and who you give your power to. If you still don't conform to their belief, here's where the paranoia sets in. They will start to try and purge you in numbers, and they will call you out on being paranoid when you actually speak about it, and they will call you a conspiracy theorist. Do we see the pattern? It's very clear in the Labour leadership elections, isn't it? In fact, I would go so far as to say, even though Jeremy Corbyn and us, the members, are being treated appallingly, it is waking people up to the realities of how, when those who want power cannot get the things they want their way, they will do everything to force it to be their way. All of this that is happening is forcing this out in the open. You have never truly had any power because those in power ensure that you don't at any means and ways, and it is only because focus has been drawn to this that you can see this now as truth and how it's affecting you all. This type of thing has been going on for centuries, but because you haven't really been that interested in this and have let things happen, slowly but surely losing control, as this is becoming a society spied upon by these MPs who will purge your vote if you don't fall into alignment with those wants that they want. The more you hold on to a non-acceptance of their version of events, and the more in their face you are with your truth, the more in yours they will be with their lies using the media. Even though it makes them look ridiculous, it doesn't matter to them as long as they get enough on their side to back them in their ridiculousness. We are waking up. And that is the greatest thing about all of this. In his steadfast ways, Jeremy Corbyn is helping more his followers to see something that is not good and that has been going on right under our noses. And you have to accept that they know what they're doing. And so letting it happen is the worst thing we can do. Putting your trust in liars and wrongdoers like evil Tony Blair because he looked like such a nice family man, someone this country could be proud of. Now, this is where it gets interesting because this affects relationships we have with each other and we have on all sorts of levels in the home, in friendships, in religion, and in politics. It is hard to drop the ego and take responsibility where we find we were wrong all along. Grown-ups, relationships continue where people are able to drop some ego and tell the truth about their feelings. Marriages survive where people are open and honest with each other and accept one another's faults. They break down where there is sneakiness, underhandedness, ego, fear, and coldness. People who have grown up with religious indoctrination will either continue to protect that ideal or they'll begin to question it. Those who continue to protect it will indoctrinate their own children. Their children in time may question their religion, and in the end, evolution occurs in those families, which is why religious families, preachers, and leaders are so extreme and strict with their families in order to hold on to those traditions, even if they have questioned it themselves. People fear change, and often it is more that they fear their families than they fear God. Because if they really did believe God was in control, they would go with the nature of the change and how change it, and how clinging on rather, just keeps things the same. If the fear of God will allow the flow of change to occur, just like the wind may blow a piece of paper down the road in the street for it to end in someone's garden. It's free to be there, allowing and accepting that something will end up where it's meant to be, and how it is meant to be is godly. Fighting change comes from fear of what is natural and progressive. In relationships, religion, and politics, where people resist this flow, ego rises, and rather than accept how things are, those resistors will begin to tell lies about you, create a smear campaign against you. In relationships and religion, they use family, they'll turn them against you. In politics, they'll blindly announce things about you, that you are liars, that you're conspiracy theorists, or the leaders that you really can see are truthful, honest people. They will pull them down and to their level and standards of behaviour. We've got to stay strong. What we need to question is what type of people and their ego and lies, due to their own personal need to make others look bad, are we allowing into our lives, and who are we allowing to lead us? In relationships, what do we hope for? Grown-ups who can and will be open to discuss their needs without fear that some ego mind will slam them down, spread rumours about them for their honesty. Instead of letting ego rise and spreading lies and rumours of bad behaviour, smearing the good name of those who they have lost because of that behaviour, these are the type of people that we need to become open, understanding of each other, to be able to talk, discuss without fear that something terrible is going to happen. In religion, what do we hope for? Adults who have children who allow them to know their background and reasons for it, but allow them to choose for themselves their own path, accepting if God chooses this for them, then God is right in this, and not bullying or indoctrinating them into their way of belief. In education, what do we hope for? Unbiased history, which allows us to see our own country's wrongdoings, historically free of patriotic speech and belief imposed upon the child, of righteousness and grandeur over the poor, along with the creation of an idea that because someone is born on a different piece of land, this life is worth less. In politics, what do we hope for? A peacemaker who will, instead of allowing ego to rise in debate, where a leader of another country points out wrongdoings, rather than point nukes at that country, take responsibility and accept truth and all that goes with that position of power. And we know with such a prospect of someone coming to power with these qualities, we know that those who, like the egomaniac in relationships, who will never take any accountability for their behaviour, and like the family who continue to impose indoctrination upon his children in such a forced way, the egocentric leader who will cause war rather than encourage relations and disarmament, will fight with all his might against the peacemaker ever coming to power by any means, by purging voters, by smearing his good name, by using the media to smear everything about him, by name calling and childish reactions, using grown up soldiers, troops, and arms to force it to be my way rather than adult debate and response. On a recent video I posted and a post from a debate site where Vlad Putin is talking clearly and precisely about who the aggressors are in the world, he shows that he is not the aggressor. A dear friend of mine, another amazing friend, and boy, am I privileged to have connected with some very special people who, along with this, his Aussie partner Sharon, does so much for charity as they dress up as Star Wars characters to collect funds for children, just like my beautiful friend that I've mentioned before, Mother Anne, who I've have to add has just been nominated for Pride of Britain awards. So good luck to her for that. And judges, please vote for Anne. She so deserves it. Anyway, back to Simon's comment on this post titled Putin's party wins vote, gains 100 seats in parliament. Is Russia a democracy? I wrote the media lies and hype about him being a bad leader is just that. I'm sick of newspapers' news and will only hear from the people's own words what they think. I connect with thousands across the world and learn from them, not from the media lies and propaganda it teaches. Our history books are full of biased lies taught to our children. Putin is not the aggressor. The USA and the UK are. I, for one, am sick of the war they create, the arms they sell to create more war. It's time for a big shift and changes back to peace and a demand for truth in the world, which can only be gained by connecting to reach people through the internet and social media. And Simon's response was, who hit the food aid convoy? That's the sort of unwelcome event from one's own ranks that is indefensible, but it may or may not be a turning point for Syria, or indeed within the Russian campaign that supports Assad. There are so many differing fractions fighting against Assad. Why is that? And what precisely is why the RAF has had the least sororities, where I mean, just who the hell are we clearing the path for? As one pilot recently and pertinently asked. That is the baseline. Even if Assad was crushed, even if the Russians forsake him, even if the rebels progress, just who the hell are we clearing the way for? And what happens then? And how long before yet more aggression from fractions within? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. My answer to that was check into Operation Hornet's Nest. Assad and Gaddafi run a democratic society. It is that they refuse to deal with the USA in oil and were choosing to use their own currency and look after their own first, cutting the USA out. Now, do remember when we were voting Brexit, Obama actually threatened that if we vote Brexit, we will be put to the back of the queue. Yeah, I know that's not the same as pointing guns and bombing us, but these are the things that go on. They use friendship and, being able to get along with each other to be able to force their way. Daniel Hay says, breathtaking. The bigger the lie, the more it will be believed. Jay Goebbels. John Smith said he is pissed because Russia lost Poland, East Germany, and the rest of the countries they had missiles in during Reagan, now playing the innocent one, Mr. KGB. Now, I've added, again, no, he isn't. He's telling the truth. These are facts. Here in the UK, the UK has been selling arms to the Arabs. Here they've been creating illegal wars. David Cameron did allow arms to get into the hands of ISIL, and reports and investigations blame him for the rise of ISIL. These are truth, and Putin says they were. Those are facts. You can't escape regardless of Putin's history. He tells it as it is. There is no defending the USA and the UK and their actions in these wars, and their offensive, not liking it that Edward Snowden went to Russia, and knowing Putin, what Putin knows all about these dealings and creation of war in Syria and Libya, and absolutely the rise of ISIL through Operation Hornet's Nest. Hence Cameron's sharp exit from Westminster. Our countries are the aggressors in all of this, and this truth cannot be changed into anything else but what it is. Further to this, I should add that Jeremy Corbyn would happily do talks with Putin, and has said he would struggle to be able to do talks with Donald Trump. This says a lot to me. However, Jeremy has said that he would talk with Trump and said that he would do talks with anyone who would be willing to talk with him. But it's clear that he is very concerned about Donald Trump becoming leader of the USA, as it seems likely he will be. John Smith said, I know Bush caused the problems in Iraq and Afghanistan. Problem is that it's not the over 300 million general public. No public Americans voted to send people to these wars. So you can say America did it, but we, the majority of the people, did not. And Putin is not just an innocent, nice man. And I doubt the world with terrorists would be so much better if they were not monitoring people they suspect as terrorists. And Snowden, by telling the public, also then told the terrorist what agencies do then also. So they can go another route. These things go way back. They go back as when the English came to America, killing 100 million Native Americans. That started it all. Then the Civil War, then it just kept going. This fight for dominance did not just start and end with Hitler. Tribes in Africa and everywhere else try and steal land, but to say Russia is innocent of anything, tell that to the people they bombed in Ukraine and now in Syria, as well as shooting down that plane full of French tourists a few years ago. I doubt that they feel Putin is a nice man, kind-hearted, peaceful, loving man, or does that count? Problem is, we the people have very little or no control when people run our countries. Simon then went on to say the system is in place right now across the globe. Here, what we all have little choice to use as ordinary citizens. All of us, no matter what border we fall inside, are powerless to correct the wrongs. Well, I disagree, because we can vote. The people, the peacekeepers, the type of people that want to bring peace to the world. The situation is the situation as it is. All leaders are corrupt by becoming leaders. All the ordinary people want peace and harmony, and to live their lives without causing death and destruction to others. We all, however, need in on the system to survive, and we work within those systems in place. We can argue that this, that, or the other isn't right, and we can blame whomever we feel is at fault. Can any one of us prevent any of it? Can groups of us prevent any of it without causing more issues for the future generations or consequences? Seems everyone is angry at this one, or this policy or that policy, or this was done to that nation, etc., etc., etc. Having observed the politics and wars since I became aware, aware that there are things occurring across the globe, that I'm embarrassed and outraged by a human being, I'm certain of two truths. First, there will never be peace whilst human beings continue within the system with the system in place. Second, there is no one leader ever or yet born that can prevent further war. This leads me to the conclusion. Live as best as you can and try to do as little harm as much good as you can within your sphere of influence. Maybe you cannot change the world's systems, but logically you can change lives. Yes, I will protest, sign petitions, post on social media, write to my MP and vote within the system. Changing the systems, though, is the only way to affect change long term, and that revolution will possibly cause more harm in the short term anyway. And by the way, Putin is a good talker. That's how he got his job. I wouldn't say he was any more honest than any of the other leaders, just more blunt. The Western leaders have a bigger problem when dealing with anything. They have to play in a team. Putin doesn't. He can dictate and eradicate without fear of repercussions. These are the two main opposing systems. Beneath those in the Western world are conservatism and socialism. All these systems rely on the trade and labour and global cooperation within certain parameters, and all of these also contain certain bias and usually some religious convictions that each has the right to tread on the other's rights. Humans are most likely the dumbest, that's a rude word there, Simon, in the whole of the Milky Way. And Richard McFeeters says that to me, that's true. I think at this point in time, he is the only one telling it, and I trust him more than all our politicians except Bernie. He is the only man I would consider able to discuss policies with honestly and bring us closer together. Well, I don't think he's the only man. I think Jeremy Corbyn is one of those men too. I responded, I would rather deal with bluntness and out in the open truths of how people really think than undercover, covert hush-hush lies. I'd rather know where I stand than find out people talk behind my back while smile to my face. That's how we all need to deal with things, and this is how deals should be done in the world. It hasn't been working so far with all of this undercover lies and spying. Only truth will bring peace, but truth amongst grown-ups, not egomaniacs like Trump. Now that's a scary prospect even Jeremy Corbyn doesn't relish. But I think Corbyn is the only one, maybe what was his name as well, the American guy can as well, could break the spell of hush hush lies whilst holding on to, in an adult response, in check enough to bring about a shift. And that is the point of this whole video, to show where we must all change if we want change, whether that be in our personal relationships, in our religions, or our politics. Being openly truthful as we know it to be, and taking accountability and responsibility for what we have each done wrong. This is our only answer to change that we want to see in the world. There are 7 steps to get outside of all this mind control and systems. Let's get everyone free from all mind control. We can do this by connecting our minds to the union of truth outside of all mind control systems. Here are some steps to do that. If you know of anything else that helps, let's pool all of our knowledge together and wisdom and get it out there in the open. The first is definition of mind. To put it simply, the mind contains knowledge, beliefs, thoughts, and thought processes and memories. And this means the mind is a container, a space that contains other things. Step 2, space and structure before mind. All mind control systems involve at least one mind, which is usually controlled by another mind. In knowing that a mind is a space or structure from step one, we have identified that space and structure is something outside of all minds, which means it's outside of all mind control systems. And this gives us a basis and doorway outside of all mind control from which to build all the definitions in our mind. So step 3, what is a universe? Universe has multiple dimensions and contains matter. This means that the universe is a multi-dimensional space that contains matter. Step 4, what a universe needs to exist is a multi-dimensional space. If multi-dimensional spaces do not exist, then the universe cannot exist. Thus, the truth of the multidimensional space must exist before universes can exist. Step 5, step outside. The universe, since the truth of the multidimensional spaces must exist before universes can exist, this shows us some of the truth that exists outside of the universe. We must explore this truth that exists outside of the universe to escape universe mind control systems. Step 6, union of truth. A multi-dimensional space is a type of space. This means space and structure exists outside of the universe. Thus, space and structure exists outside of all mind control systems and outside of the universe. This is the basis of truth that we must build our mind around in order to get our mind outside of all mind control systems. Step 7, exercise the demons. Knowing what's written in this post is not good enough. All your definitions in the semantic memory area of your brain and the mind have to have the right connections to this truth that exists outside of all mind control. This means that we have to do work and exercises that model all the definitions to the words in our mind and connect them to the truth that exists outside of all mind control systems. Without having those connections between our definitions in our mind, we don't get out. So we need to do the work for this first. Knowledge is not connection. Also, addiction is a form of mind control, so addictions must be abandoned, including the addiction to power or pleasure and addictions to mind control of others. So it's time to get free. That's the answer to all of this is it's time to get free and get beyond all of these systems and put ourselves outside of everything, the boundaries that have been set into place to control us. We need to get beyond it. I hope that we all manage to somehow free ourselves, because that's what we need to do from everything that we've been taught, all the dramas that are created by it, all the wars that have been created by it, all the killings that have been created by it. Get beyond it. The only place and the only space for all of that really is ultimately love, to love. Thank you again, and I hope that really has sunk in. I know it's very, very, very long, and I hope you can listen into small parts if it gets too much. Do ramble on. Bless you all for listening. Namaste and love to all. Blessings and good luck, Anne Rich as well, Mother Anne, for the Pride of Britain Awards. You've really got to win for us all. Love you. Bye for now.